Greetings shippers and welcome back to another episode of Fanversations. Today we're going to be taking a look at a variety of things, but all centered around the idea of Femslash and writing Femslash. Today we're joined by Harley, an avid Femslash lover and fanfic writer, and also someone who enjoys to work with OCs. So we cover a lot of ground and talk about a lot of different shows. So if that sounds like it's for you, stick around. I'm going to have links to Harley's fics and some of the other authors we mentioned down below. So please, if you're so inclined, check that out. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Of course, there's always a lot to tackle in these, so let's get started.
I didn't even realize, we're just about the same hair color at this point.
Yeah.
I am, sweating so much because I've been counting down the weeks, days for this. This is so huge for me. All of my friends and family have been, so excited for me. I actually have a children's literature professor I met with a couple days ago who was just like, oh my god, I can't believe you're doing this. They're all like, send me a link!
No, I'm glad. It's gonna be fun.
I'm really excited. It's funny, because the reason I'm all dressed up is I'm heading to a Wonderland 21st birthday party after this, so
nice.
I'm going Jefferson for it, I've got my top hat.
Nice. No, I too, after this, I have a bachelorette party to get to. We're going axe throwing, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
It's gonna be a good time.
I would love to throw an axe.
No, I know, we were like, what should we do? We want to be different. And then we're like, well, axe throwing sounds fun. Greetings, shippers. It's Sasha here with...
Harley Shine. I'm a fanfiction writer and a Femslash enthusiast.
Yes, and that is why you got in touch with me, because you wanted to discuss Femslash in particular. So, what was it about it so what is it that's drawn you to Femslash, firstly? Because not everybody is drawn to it, so...
For 6 years of my adolescence and my adult life, I was a lesbian as far as I knew. I've only been trans for a couple of months, so it was really just a safe space for me. Mm-hmm. I remember being 15 and the fandom that, Harry Potter was probably my first, real fandom, but the fandom that really got me into what fandom was the Glee fandom, and that was really where I was, where I started to realize, oh, I'm probably gay. I started out as an aggressive ally, and then I was like, oh no, yep, girls like those. Mm-hmm. And just sort of fell into it. I remember the first fanfiction I read was a Klain fanfiction. It's still on my fanfiction page in my favorites. Mm-hmm. And then I moved on to Britannia and Amaya from the PLL fandom. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was my gateway into fandom. Mm-hmm.
So do you find that you gravitate towards it more than other types of pairings because you identify with it more?
Absolutely, yeah. It's very strange to be in that sort of pre-T space where you're like, oh, these are spaces for women, and I'm not. And I still want to contribute to the Femslash community regardless of my change in gender.
So is that mostly what you do, right? Is Femslash?
Absolutely, yeah. And that kind of is my most popular demographic, because I've written some hetero things and it's not really as popular. No one really cares about it when I write it.
So how did you get into writing the fiction, from just reading it and being part of it in that way to actually writing it?
Well, I've been a writer for 14 years. I really wrote, original stuff, and I did write fanfiction before, I knew what it was. I distinctly remember writing a Pokemon self-insert with, the original series mm-hmm. when I was, 8, so. Mm-hmm. But I think it just kind of like, I just kind of fell into it. I remember the first, like, fan fiction I really wrote for was, it was a Glee, like, in screenplay format, and it's awful. And, like, the first, like, real multi-chapter, like, large fic that I did was, for the My Little Pony fandom.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote, it was, the main pairing was Flutterdash.
Yeah.
I really, like, I love the love-to-hate trope is, like a big draw for me, but like friends to lovers with those two, it's just it's everything. Like I think they're just so cute. And the MLP fan art is like it's astounding, honestly. So that was like the real like fic that got me into it. I tend to write with my OCs a lot. I like do a crossover with my original stuff and fan fiction often. And unfortunately, with the MLP fandom, I got a lot of backlash for that. I actually, whenever, like, before I did, like, these huge edits in 2012, I actually, whenever you Google my fanfiction, this thing comes up with, like, these bronies basically reading my stuff aloud and making fun of it. So, and then there was this one point where I was on the My Little Pony wiki, and my given name is Lauren, so they actually thought I was pretending to be Lauren Faust because I said it was Lauren and I'm a writer. So yeah, that was something. So My Little Pony fandom, I guess, was my gateway into Femslash and writing for it. But Glee fandom was really like where I started being interested in it.
So have you found that fandom and fiction and writing has helped you define and come to terms with your identity, or has it just been an added bonus of just something that you can work on in your spare time for fun and that also expresses it in that way?
A lot of both. I think it's the Femslash community definitely did help me come to terms with who I was, absolutely, and just sort of reaffirming that it's okay to be this way. And it's also, I'm a writer, like, I write all the time.
Yeah.
Every day. I have so many role plays I'm doing. I have had multiple writing partners in different Femslash communities. I was just working with my writing partner who lives in England. We're working on a PLL thing, and it's a sequel to our collab fic that we did. We turned a role play into a fan fiction. And it is, like, novel size. It's almost like 200,000 words. It's enormous. So we're working on the epilogue, which is like, and we didn't really have a villain. So we were just like, the villain is miscommunication.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's really fun because we basically get to do an epilogue, but it's still like a story. And it just, like, the epilogue got, like, too big for the first one.
How do you find collabing and working with people online?
I think it's incredible. I mean, the first, like, real writing partner I had, she's from Malta, and she is a huge Swan Queen writer. And she's fantastic. I can plug her stuff in if you want, because, like, her Captain Swan fic that she did, which is basically taking the ship name of, Captain Swan and giving it to Swan Queen because Emma's a pirate captain.
Nice.
And it's her latest thing, and it's incredible. Like, I am in awe of her work, and she actually helped me with my style and making it more cohesive. I learned a lot from working with her. So she's from Malta, and I didn't even know that Malta was a country, let alone a place. So really it has just taught me a lot about, coming together from other sides of the world and making connections. And with my writing partner that I'm working with now from England, Laurel, her and I have this like in sync way of working with each other. Like our styles, our academic knowledge is very similar, and it's just amazing to, people I would have never met like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I can, because I'm growing up in this age, and I'm so lucky.
So do you find that Femslash is a bit of an isolated community, or do you find that it meshes well with all the others, but it just oftentimes happens to be smaller?
I think that it really depends on the fandom, because with the Femslash community of the Once Upon a Time fandom, people the mainstream fandom doesn't really like the Femslash community of the Once Upon a Time fandom. I've noticed, because there's a lot of, like, the Captain Swan fandom and the Swan Queen fandom are not friends.
No,
like,
no, they're not.
They are very, very, like, very passionate people. And, you know, with the Swan Queen fandom, I have to say, like, I do love them, and I think they're very, very talented, but I think they are a bit aggressive, and they sometimes forget that fandom is supposed to be fun, and you gotta calm down a little bit. Like, I thought Hook was, I didn't initially ship Swan Queen when I started watching the show, even though Tumblr GIFs is kind of how I started watching it. It was like when season 3 was like happening in real time. That's when I found the show on Netflix. I was like, oh, this should be fun. And I remember, being a Captain Swan shipper till, like, season 3, because I was like, I see the chemistry and I get it. And I mean, he was necessary in Neverland, so...
Yeah, he belonged there. At that point, he still very much had a definite role to play.
And, like, their Emma and Hook's kiss in that particular scene, like, I remember watching it a couple of days ago and sending it to my friend, because she's, like, a huge Captain Swan shipper, and that's one of the things where we agree to disagree on. She doesn't see my vision. I don't see her vision. She thinks, Hook is the best thing since sliced bread, even though he is sliced bread. I get it. I remember I rewatched that scene just a couple of days ago, and I was like, man, like, I get it now. Like, I remember that they had definite chemistry. Like, that is a great, well-written scene. And my friend from Malta and I were always just like, oh, these writers, like, she calls them the Brothers Dim, like Adam and Eddie.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I think it's really, like, it depends on the fandom. I think with the Glee fandom, it's a little different. I think that there is the Slash fandom and the Femslash fandom. They sometimes coincide, but sometimes they didn't, because I was there for, like, I was more active in the fandom because I joined Tumblr in 2013, so, like, Glee was, like, on its way out. Yeah. I stayed till the very end out of loyalty. I wouldn't recommend that. It was a ride. It's just, you never really lose love for your first fandom, no matter how badly it ended. Yeah.
Even if you acknowledge intellectually that it's gone down a dark, sad path, you can still kind of rationalize, like, oh, well, there's this good part, and that you just kind of pick the good parts out of what was there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Ryan Murphy doesn't know how to write women, and I've heard things that he still doesn't. I'm not a big fan of horror, so I haven't touched American Horror Story, but I've heard, like, he still doesn't know how to write women.
It's a bit of that, and also more, I found the problem with American Horror Story, his pacing problems really kicked into high gear, so you'd be meandering, and all of a sudden it's like, we have to do everything, we have no time. It's like,
Yep. I feel like that's the same thing that happened with Adam and Eddie with Once Upon a Time, is that in season 1 everything is perfect. Like, yeah, it really is, like, there is a cohesive story, and I see the same, like, pattern with Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. I am, like, that's, like, going to be my next big project, is, like, trying to do a fix-it fic for, like, the canon with, like, because season 4, after I watched Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, because I was watching it when season 6 was happening. Yeah. Like, I binged it when I was, like, really sick for a week, and I was out of school, so I just remember being like, oh, this is so good! Like, now I remember why I, like, liked the show, why I loved it, because that was another thing that, like, I really like what they did with season 7, for once. I think that it's great.
It was a good, valiant effort. I am kind of sad that they canceled it, because I was like, you know what? This was a really good college try to get this going again.
I'm more mad because the writers actually said that, like, they started working on it around season 4. I'm like, well, that's when the show went, so no wonder you were working on this other better project, and you just kind of stopped. And I mean, I didn't mind the Frozen arc. I know Frozen arc gets a lot of hate, but I thought it was great. Like,
I can't handle the pandering of Frozen arc, because I remember, I was like, Frozen is really huge now. In 10 years, when we look back and people are like, what is this Frozen of which you speak? This is going to be really weird.
Yeah, I get it.
I liked the Ice Queen part of it. Like, that part I absolutely loved.
Oh yeah, no,
And
Ingrid was great. Like, she was a pretty good villain, and I also really liked her chemistry with Rumple. Like, I know, like, I'm not saying I ship them, but like, I thought they had some really nice scenes together. I thought they played off each other really well. And I mean, Robert Carlyle is a fantastic actor.
He's great. And he's one of the people who, throughout all of it, he's always trying. And I admire that so much. Because some people
he and Lana are the only things. Like, Lana and Colin, like, that's the reason why they kept them, is because they are the only things holding up the show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really like Hook, though I fell in love with Hook again in season 7. Like, I thought, oh my god, this is what everyone else sees in him. I get it.
I felt bad for him because he fell down that spike hole that often happens.
Yes! Oh my god, I kept saying that. Season 5 and season 6, I was like, they're trying to make him Spike. I'm so upset he's not Spike.
I think for me, I'm actually planning on doing an episode analyzing. Remember the episode where they go on their first date? Like, it's their first date, and he has, like, the new hand and everything. Oh my god. And it's just that episode encompasses everything wrong with their arc, because the show keeps forcing him into this villain arc because nobody will forgive him. And I'm like, but he's changed. But the show refuses to acknowledge it until it has to way later. It just makes it so agonizing.
Also, can we just talk about Emma's wedding dress? Because she would not wear a dress to any wedding. I don't care who she would be married to. Like, her season 5 wardrobe, I just remember being like, I'm sorry, what is that dress? It's from, not even Granny would wear that dress. Like, you know exactly which dress I'm talking about, too.
Well, they always made hilarious choices with Emma. Like, with the first early decision before they cast a younger actress, and they were like, she has a ponytail. She's 16 years old. I was dying.
Okay. Can we just, like, when they had to do the scenes with her and Neil, and they were like, oh, age her down, just put glasses on.
Yeah,
like,
and a ponytail. She's so young.
Oh my god. I actually really like Swanfire. I like Swanfire over, for what it was. I sort of feel...
People don't like Neil, and it's something I've never really understood. I'm like, what's wrong with Neil? Neil's alright.
I think he's very likable. I think that the actor really brought something to the table, and honestly, like, the scene in that joke of 100th episode between him and Emma was very sweet, and I cried. Like, I was very emotional, because they did something right. Like, there was a lot of nice moments in the bad seasons.
In the rough bad
like
seasons, yeah.
Ruby, Merida, and Mulan's gay road trip for an entire episode.
I always feel so bad for Mulan, because Mulan always has such great natural chemistry with people, and they just, like, ignore it. Like, no love for Mulan.
Mulan Rouge should have happened, and I will never be over that. Like, who is this Dorothy that's trying to be Katniss? Excuse yourself.
That's why I was so annoyed, because I think that's what bothers me the most with when you see the real potential chemistry for queer pairings, whatever they may be, and then they just get completely sidelined for something else that has no chemistry. And that was my huge problem with Ruby and Dorothy. It was just like, they just appeared out of nowhere, and then it was like true love.
It was so forced, too. Like, it was an entire episode, and I mean, like, Megan Ori tried her best. Like, I love the actor so much, and she got so much shit from the writers. And, like, I actually write for Ruby a lot, because I think she's such a versatile character, and I think that she should have been the fandom bicycle, and I love that term, by the way. I think that video was so funny, and I loved it so much, because, I mean, yeah, I get why Hook is the human bicycle of the Once fandom. I get it, but, like, I think Ruby had the potential to be the bicycle. She totally did, and also, like, I will never be over what they did to Belle, and like, Rumpel, like...
That was a roller coaster that I wanted to get off by about season 3.
Yeah, like, I first of all, like, I have a huge thing for, like, Belle's accent, even though it's completely misplaced and doesn't make any sense. I think the actress is wonderful, and I think that she did a nice reinterpretation of the character.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so ticked with what they did to her. Like, I actually, I don't know if you got a chance to read the giant crossover fic that I sent you, but that was really me trying to give Belle give her a redemption, a better personality than what they gave her on the show, because she shouldn't be as passive as they make her to be, and it makes me so angry.
Remember that arc where she was cursed and so she was Lacey?
Yeah.
My husband was like, can she just be Lacey? I would love the show so much.
One of the things that I think was a great moment that they literally ripped everything from, like, I wish they had stuck with this and just, like, rolled with it, was, when she, you know, made him leave Storybrooke, when she took the dagger from him, that breakup scene in season 4 is one of her best scenes. Also, the scene where she gets really mad at Regina for, like, going through all the books in season 3 because she's looking to stop Zelena. Like, I love that scene so much when Regina's like, oh, bookworms got teeth. Like, that scene is so good. I love passionate, angry Belle because that is who she is at her core. Like,
So do you find that another outlet for Femslash can also be to redeem and expand upon these female characters who often don't get their due in the canon, be it because they're side characters, be it because they're just being misrepresented, or just a variety of other factors that tend to happen?
See, I have an entire discussion point for this, which is really the fandom that I write for right now.
Yeah.
We just rewatched the sequel last night with a friend because they hadn't seen it. That's essentially the reason why I write for the Descendants fandom. Is, I mean, so when, the whole reason I found this movie is because there was one day a couple of years ago where I was stalking Kristen Chenoweth's IMDb page, and I was like, ooh, this sounds fun. And then it comes out, like, Disney released the first 6 minutes of the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, you know, and I see Mal and Evie on screen, and I'm like, those are my kids now, those are mine, they're my daughters. And then I saw the movie, and I remember thinking, like, I don't know if I like this or I hate this, and I've seen the movie about 15 times. I still don't know if I love it or hate it, but I think what I'm in love with is the potential that is unused and untouched, and that's the thing is, the thing that kind of started taking my fan fiction off as a writer, like, I finally, you know, got recognition for it, was the Hatchling's Mentor, which is essentially a fix-it fic for the movie. And it literally, there is a start-off point in the canon that I jumped off where I don't know if you're a fan of the movies or not.
Not as familiar. I saw it a while back, so refresh my memory.
Okay, well, there is this one scene where, you know, Mal is on a date with Ben, you know, the whole strawberries thing, and, you know, that whole AMV thing in the middle of the movie for Jump Camera's song, where they basically do a flashback of the entire, like, 5 minutes of their forced heterosexual relationship. Which personally I think is compulsory heterosexuality. Though I will say they did bring, they brought the Bal chemistry that we needed in the first movie to the sequel. Like, I see it now. I see you. I get it. But Mal and Evie are in love. They did a whole. There was a number that was extremely queer baited in the sequel. That, like, I remember I was watching it last night with my friend, and they were just like, gay! Like, you know, there were just so many moments where we were just, like, looking at each other like, gay, it's gay. And I was just watching this video on Descendants, and apparently, like, there was this whole thing with Thomas Doherty, who plays Harry Hook, and the guy who plays Gil, I don't remember the actor's name. And apparently, like, there was this whole thing where their Instagram, like, they posted a picture of them kissing on set as their characters dressed in costume during the number where that's, like, Uma's opening number. which is fantastic, and I have played so many times since it was released. And it was them kissing, basically on a bar, and, like, you know, the fandom went nuts.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that I tend to have a problem with, is that, Slash, you're right, Slash does get so much more recognition, and, like, it's much more of a fetish thing, where Femslash is kind of demonized in a lot of spaces, in a lot of fandom spaces, and I get angry.
I find it very interesting because I think there is a hint of fetishization for some people, definitely, when it comes to Slash. I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't even think that the excitement everybody has when they see something like that is necessarily fetishization. Sometimes it's just like, yay, potential canon. But it's interesting because I find that if you were to reverse it, you know, and it was the two girls kissing, there almost seems to be more of a fear of fetishization in some corners, I've noticed. As if some people don't seem aware that you can fetishize the males and not the females. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, some people don't seem aware that you can
I get it,
switch the lens, kind of. And so, because I got an email from somebody who was like, oh, I'd love to write Femslash, but I am a straight man. I'm afraid that if I write it, they're going to think that I'm just fetishizing it, and it's not what I want to do at all. And so it's a very interesting dilemma.
Yeah. So it's funny because, so one of my friends, the friend who's actually really into Captain Swan, she got me into the Vampire Diaries. So I really actually loved your conversation about that, because I'm a huge Caroline fan. I am like late season 7 right now, and nice. I know how it ends, because the internet is
ruins everything.
It's over. So I know how it ends. I've looked up spoiler clips, and I'm starting to research and get ready for fics for it, because I would like to expand my audience, and that's the thing that I think about is the marketing aspect of it, even though I don't get paid to do it, but hey, it's something that I think about constantly. My work is very meticulous. I do research. I watch clips on a regular basis. I have a whole thing, playlist entitled Research, so I can remember what characters' voices sound like, which is very important to me. I make playlists for the mood of my fic, like for the second half of Hatchland's Mentor, because it was technically 2 stories originally. I wrote the sequel before Disney did. I couldn't start writing a chapter until I had found a lyrical reference that fit the mood that I wanted to set, which was quite something. And I actually have links to the playlist on my stuff, but music is a very important thing for me as a writer.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I secretly make fan mixes for characters, so...
There's nothing secret about it. I've always liked to my friends, I'm like, look what I did for this guy!
So when you first started writing fiction, did you do as much research as you do now, or was this something you built up to?
Not. I just went for it. And I think that was a little bit of where my mistakes were lying, like a little bit. Like, I think I could have done more research. I think I could have, because there, I look, how you always look back and you're just like, oh yeah, God. I think one of the things that I really, I think when I really started to do research was probably for the MLP thing, but then what I think really, really was very heavy into research was I actually wrote a sequel to Frozen, where Elsa got a love interest that I wrote for her. And I actually I wrote like 7 songs for it.
Nice.
I still have to, it is actually available. It's called Thawed, and it's on fanfiction.net. My fanfiction.net stuff is really old. And kind of unedited, and I'm cutting.
Can I just say that I really hope that's actually the sequel name, because that's fantastic.
So it's really funny, because my friend, my best friend came up with the name. She was talking with this guy, this like gay guy who was like one of her friends, and she was just kind of like, oh, it could be called Thawed because Elsa's heart is going to thaw. Fun. So I was like, well, I guess I better get to work there.
It's mine now.
Yeah. I was like, thanks, babe. It's great. And it's funny because she and I and this other girl started working on a roleplay for that. So it was really fun to do that. I need to go back to that. Like, I really want to, like, revitalize it because I feel like it's actually could be a good cohesive script, but it's in prose, so it's, like, so much shorter than it should be. It's, like, 13 pages. Like, I wrote 13 pages, 7 songs in a month for this. It was insanity. I don't know how I did it because I have, like, 2 works in progress, and one of them is, like, my most popular thing. It's got, like, over 2K at this point.
So you were saying about the Descendants fandom.
Yeah, well, I've tended to look at what other fic authors were doing, and because the Descendants fandom has a younger demographic, and they're mostly writers who are just starting, I was like, oh god, like, this fanfiction, it's bad. Like, it's... And it's more of just, like, you're 15, you're starting out, this is your first fandom, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but I was just like, okay, so, this fandom, I'm 22, so I'm gonna have a lot more experience with working with stuff like this, and when I write Mal and Evie, it's more of, YA format than what Disney is presenting on screen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure they talk like teenagers, and there is a exploration of sexuality, and I actually have this headcanon that the evil queen in the Descendants verse is an alcoholic. So I kind of try to incorporate that with Evie, and it's sort of like an issue that she sort of has, like, this... she sort of starts to drink when she's depressed because that's what her mother does as a coping mechanism. So I really try to deal with, like, actual issues. So, and that's the thing is, like, Descendants, because I tend to have more life experience than most of the fandom, people kind of flock to my stuff because they're thirsty for good content that's, like, it is closer to canon, or the canon that they want, because I think one of the biggest problems I have with the Descendants movie is that with Mal, as the movie, goes on, she gets progressively more feminine, and I don't think that's necessary. And I'm not saying that, like, oh, I want her to be completely butch either, because she's not. But I think one of the biggest problems was, like, they had her go from Hot Topic to Claire's, like. And it's really funny because her coronation dress, like, my friends and I have taken to calling it the lavender monstrosity. Because it's this, and I mean, there's nothing wrong, there's not, like, anything inherently wrong with that. Like, obviously, if you go from Hot Topic to Claire's as you get older, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think as a character, like, it's important to have a girl with a little edge, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can be feminine and be punk at the same time. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that they kind of took that away from the character.
People aren't often very nuanced with femininity, I find. It's very much like, you're one thing, and that's the thing that you are.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, like, I don't like about Descendants, is that, they're these easy archetypes, and I think that's a thing that that is a problem with a lot of teen and tween things. Like, if you look at Riverdale, that's a thing.
Riverdale is a beautiful masterpiece, but for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, season 2, I have actually kind of stopped caring a little bit. I've heard whisperings of a musical episode, so I'm excited for that, but I'm also terrified because I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, after every episode lately, I'm just like, what?
But why, though? Yeah, I know.
I'm like, I know I'm not high, but it feels like I have been for the past 45 minutes.
No, if I had a blog about Riverdale, it would just be called But Why, Though? Because...
WTF.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I wrote for Riverdale was really fun because I did my OC, Elena, who is, in most of my fics, and I really one of the things that I was really nervous about is, introducing her as a character, because she is very accessible and she's very shippable. And I didn't want people to see her as a Mary Sue, so I was very worried about that before I posted HM, because she is essentially like the glue. She is the hatchling's mentor for, because Mal, dragon thing. So I was very worried about that when I posted it. And then the first comment I got was, Elena's so hot, I love her, she's such a badass, like, I can't believe she exists, like, she's so good for Mal, like, I'm so happy that she's here, and just feeling like crying, because this was the one thing I feared, and the first 2 comments were from the same person,
Nice.
And they were like, I love her!
So, you work with OCs a lot. How did you come to work with them, and what made you stick with them? Because I know some people end up just giving up on OCs because the response tends to be lukewarm at best at times.
I think it was really just, because I kind of took a break from fandom after, actually posting stuff for a while. After I posted Thawed, and it was a lukewarm response, and I got all that backlash from the MLP fandom, I was just kind of like, well, I just, worked on my stuff with my friends. I sent all my fics to my friends, and, that was positive, and I was like, oh my god, look at this thing that I did. And I kept, all this stuff in my archives. I tend to use Google Docs, so, I had all these documents and all these things that I would work on, and then Descendants happened, and I was like, well, this isn't going to work if I just keep it, in the canon verse. Elena is, essentially, she is the titular character.
Yeah.
She's so important to the story that I can't take her out. And then, Buffy made an appearance because Elena and Buffy are in love, and that's a thing that I will always write. It's the one... I found this amazing post on Tumblr at one point that's, talking about ships, and, level 7 ship is, your OC and one character, and I'm like, that's me! That is the level I'm at with these 2. And I remember just being really worried about the fact that the second half of HM is really more Elena and Buffy's story with their marriage and them getting ready to get married, and it did sort of take away from the Descendant stuff and sort of moved into, it really became a crossover. Because at first, when I included Buffy, I didn't even mention her name. I just had her with this nice little moment in a garden with Elena, where Elena's, on this mission to save Auradon, and mentor Mal so nothing happens. And, it's this beautiful scene of them just having a moment at this ball, far away from everybody else, very isolated, very sweet, Elena misses her girlfriend. This is before their proposal. One of the things I really did want to do is, I didn't want to sexualize, they're 16 in the movie, so I aged them up in the second half. And you definitely see that in the second half, because the first scene you see with Mal and Evie is they're basically making out in their underwear in the opening of the second half. I wanted to make sure... this is it, they're seniors, You really don't talk about, Actually, they did. They said 6 months had passed in the second movie, but you barely hear it. Oh my god. So, Disney Descendants, there are 3 different canons, and it makes me crazy. Because you have the book canon, which, now after the sequel to Descendants came out, they say are canon now, but they didn't before.
Okay.
I actually read the first book. I found it online for free before I started writing, just to be sure, and it really did help a lot to get into Mal's character, to get into her head. My friend and I call her our little angsty dragon child. And then they have the web series, which just seems to be floating in some sort of void somewhere. There's little connections that they make between the movie canon but there are 3 different canons, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's not cohesive, and Disney, what are you doing? I love you, but...
Yeah, but just go the Star Wars route. Just disavow it. Disavow that canon.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, I like the web series. I didn't like the first 2 episodes because it was just oh, this is for children. I need to stop. And then I got into it again because Mal and Evie started acting like they should, like it was in character. But yeah, OCs, at the end of the day... Fanfiction's for me. If you like my stuff, that's great. Comment, kudos it, whatever, tell me. Sure, but, it's for me. This is my work, this is my passion, this is something I do to relax and to, escape everything that's going on, because, we got all this shit in America going on. It's not pretty.
Did you always feel that way, or was
Oh,
having to deal with the
absolutely
backlash
not.
part of it?
It just sort of came with age, honestly.
Mhm.
When I was younger, it was more about, other people and their validation with my work. But now it's more like, no, this is for me. Like, it's my work, and I'm happy with how it turned out.
So after having to deal with like the backlash that you mentioned earlier, does that still impact how you interact with fandom, or is it something that it happened and now you know how to deal with it in the future going forward?
I say a little bit of both. It's not something I don't actually have any backlash anymore. I've actually it's been really positive on AO3, and like I hardly ever do get negative comments in a lot of my work, even my older works. I know how to handle it, but yeah, I mean, it's words will hurt you, and they will stick with you, and they're nasty things that just kind of dig under your skin, and it's not fun, but it's a part of what I do.
Yeah.
So it's just something I'm gonna have to deal with, and I mean, you get that in life. People are mean. Like, so, I mean, the only difference is, like, it's not to your face, it's on a computer screen, and you don't know what that person's dealing with or what they're going through, and if they're attacking your stuff, maybe something's going on, or maybe they just really didn't like what you're doing, and that's not on you.
So how often do you write, and how many fics do you typically have going at the same time?
It really depends on where I am in my life. Right now I have 2 fics in progress, one of which is my original crossover with Riverdale and PLL, which is really fun because it's Elena's world is actually called the Legend Academy, and she is a legend. It's a elemental shapeshifter, and it was I was inspired by Avatar to write these characters, so it's not like the typical elements. I actually have notes right here. Not spoilers, I promise. But elements like, Elena is the tigress of fire and ice, and one of the things I love about the tigress is that besides the dragon, which is master of all, obviously, which is essentially my avatar equivalent, they have a weapon and element associated with their animal form.
Okay.
Originally, I wanted to do the Chinese zodiac, and then that didn't happen. So it's fine. But Elena as a tigress is fire and ice, and it is also the only gendered element, really. It's feminine, which, yes, there could be a trans legend. Please hold. I'll try. But, it represents duality, sort of that yin and yang thing, fire and ice are opposites. So that was really fun because I'm really excited. I'm going to have Jughead in a slash relationship, but he's going to be Ace because I'm upset about that, and I actually really wanted that for him. And I actually wasn't really into the comics for Riverdale. I just remember picking them up at the grocery store when I was bored and waiting for my mom to check out. So I wasn't sure what to expect with Riverdale, and I remember seeing your video and just being like, I guess I'll give this a try, maybe. And, first season, I remember being like, well, that was a ride. I was a huge fan of PLL. I remember I got into PLL because there was a video comparing Amaya and Britannia, and I was like, well, I'm a lesbian now, I better watch all the lesbian things. And I ended up really liking the show, and that's actually what I'm writing for right now with my writing partner, is like this huge PLL thing that's, I'm really excited for it. We started with season 4, and now we're doing the 5-year time jump that they did. I don't know if you're really into the show, but that fandom is very interesting and has many facets to it.
It's a fascinating place. No, it's a very, very fascinating thing.
I think it's interesting because, you have one side that's, like, all about the theories, and then you have just the shipper gratification side. It's like, I don't really care about who A is, I just want Arya and Ezra to get married.
No, it's a fun fandom because that doesn't often happen. Like, a lot of times you'll find you have more theory or more ships, but it's almost like this clean split down this. It's almost like dealing with a Star Trek fandom too, wherein like you have the techies and like the shippers and stuff like that. And I love talking to my friend because he doesn't ship at all. So it's like, well, what about this pairing? It's like, yeah, but the turbolift's over there. So it's so good.
See, I never really got into Star Trek, but I have a lot of respect for the fandom since it's, you know, the OG modern fandom. And, you know, I've done a couple of papers on fandom. So, like, that was the big thing is I'm like, well, we wouldn't have gay ships, like modern gay ships without Star Trek. So thanks, guys. But yeah, we keep going off on tangents. It's fine.
It's what always happens with these. It's inevitable when you talk about fandom because fandom is so multifaceted and there's just so much of it. But speaking of the writing, do you also do your own original, this completely original content as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot harder sometimes because, you know, you just love your babies so much and you don't want to let them go. But there's something so freeing about writing original work because you don't have the structure, you don't have, you know, it is so free. It is literally free form. There is just so many possibilities. You can do so many things. Right now, I just started a thing about a vampire who's a millennial who, like, wanted to commit suicide during the election and then ended up waking up because her boyfriend, like, roofied her drink with his blood. And this is, like, some guy she met on Tinder. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's going to be fun.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to take away, like, the romanticism of being immortal with her. I'm really, like, getting into my Valley Girl with her, so I'm, really excited about that.
No, I think being a vampire would be awful. Living forever would be absolutely atrocious. I love the canons with vampires where they're just so removed and cruel because of it. Because you wouldn't... How would you maintain anything? If you'd be so bored after being alive for so long. I get bored after a week of doing nothing. I can't imagine 100 years of doing
Well, that's the thing is, like, I really wanted to show, like, what it's like if you don't have Dracula's castle and all that money, and that's what I really like about, so her name is Susan Smith, and it's supposed to be generic because she's supposed to be this everyman, and I'm really embracing that, like, stereotype, and I have Twilight jokes in this already, like, I am fully prepared with that because obviously that is the thing that I would get the most shit for is like, oh, she's just Bella Swan or whatever, and I actually have her like be like, Bella Swan is such a basic and I am nothing like her.
So how do you find the balance like of your fandom and your original work?
I don't know if there's so much a balance right now. I am definitely more fandom than original work lately, but, you know, it fluctuates. And I will say that something that really helped with my Buffy fic with Elena and Buffy is actually, you know, as a writer and as someone who writes original stuff, I tend to discover things about my characters as I'm writing, and I'm like, excuse me, I did not know this, how dare you? Like, I remember messaging my friend when I was writing chapter 2 of HM, being like, my daughters had sex and they didn't tell me? And just, like, little things like that, like, things I don't know about these characters yet that I tend to discover as I'm writing, and that happened a lot during, like, my fic writing is, like, a lot of my OCs, I'd be like, what are you doing? Okay, fine, we're going this way, all right. I don't think of them as my puppets or my slaves, they're my coworkers, and, you know, you don't know what your coworkers are going to do on Tuesday.
So how did your characters move from being more self-insert to more independent?
I have to say that, I think Elena was really the start of that, because I only did original work for a long time, like, until the Glee fandom, you know, sort of happened. You know, as I was younger, how you know you were trans when you were little, ... I actually wrote for primarily male characters, and my female characters were very flat and shallow. And then Elena sort of became this complex person, she is probably the most real out of my characters for me, which is why it took me forever to find a face claim, because, you know, if Faye is perfect, you don't know if anyone's going to fit.
Yeah.
I don't really know when it really happened. I think that it really did sort of start with Elena just, you know, giving her a personality and fleshing out my female characters more. Because I think, you know, when you're little, you know, your characters, you know, your stories start out like a Disney movie. Like, everyone has, like, one motive and one, you know, box they fit into, and then when you get older and you actually, like, hone your craft, things happen. You know, people become nuanced. Like, right now I have a character who I love. His name is Leo, and I love writing for him because he is, like, one of those characters who's, like, always helpful and, like, doing, like, all the odd jobs for everybody else. Like, he's a limo driver, he's a painter in New York City. He shows up everywhere, and I love that he's, like, has a cameo everywhere because he's good at everything. And he is also, like, he is sort of a deconstruction of the trope Latin lover, where he is, a Mexican-Russian dancer. But he is, like, extremely ace, but he teaches dance classes, so I just always see him with, like, all these soccer moms drooling over him. He's flirting, but there's nothing behind it. He's being genuine.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny to think about. And, you know, I wouldn't have gotten there if it weren't for writing Mary Sue type characters, you know?
No, like, the Mary Sue gets a lot of flack. It's all right. I mean, I think everybody who's written an OC at some point has written something that's a little bit Mary Sue-ish every now and then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, Elena started out as a Mary Sue. I was very into Shell and Showdown, and she started out as a love interest for Chase Young, because I was in love with him. Because, you know, who doesn't love a bad boy? And I'm hugely in love with the voice actor's work. I mean, he was the voice of Kovu. How many people are sexually confused by Kovu, honestly? Like, you take a poll, like... I am obsessed with Lion King fan art. Like, I hoard it on my DeviantArt. Like, no one uses DeviantArt, but that's, like, the only reason I use it. Honestly, I just, like, the big thing for me, like, on there really is the Lion King fan art. Like, I love fandoms that just keep going. Like, Buffy fandom, that's one of the reasons why I love the Buffy fandom, is, like, it's still going. Like, it's also, like, because it's on Netflix, people, you know, I wouldn't have started watching it if I didn't, you know, if I hadn't had it on
access to it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that show changed my life. Like, I love Glee, but Buffy is just about a perfect show, in my opinion. It took me a while to get into Angel, though. Like, the first season, I stopped watching it. Like, I was like, this is not my Buffy. Like, I can't, I couldn't handle it. Like, Angel, for me, I actually have this joke with him and Elena where I have her call him Cullen, and he doesn't know what a Cullen is.
No, like, Angel's so broody. That's kind of how I got through it, but it was mostly because I was making fun of him. I was like, what's Angel sad about today? Okay.
Well, I see him as, you know, he's a 90s Edward Cullen detective. That's who he is as a person. Which is actually why I tend to ship Kangel more than Bangle, because I think Cordelia lightens him up, while Buffy just feeds into his angst.
Yeah. No, I liked him and Cordelia a lot. And Cordelia evolved and had such a nice arc throughout the two shows.
I didn't like her the first 2 seasons of Buffy. I was just like, who is this girl? And I think it was because I was still in high school, so, like, she kind of triggered me at some point. I don't know. I started Buffy my senior year of high school, and I just remember just, you know, really falling in. I know season 1 gets a lot of, like, shit, but I actually, like, the first episode, I was like, sign me up. I am hooked. I am stuck. I am never going back. Down the rabbit hole I go happily. And I think one of the things I love about Buffy is that the main character isn't boring, you know? Which is a thing I think you see a lot right now, like, with Vampire Diaries. Like, I don't give a about Elena Gilbert. I'm sorry, like...
I care way more about all the people around her, too.
Exactly!
Than
like,
her.
I remember being drawn to, like, Bonnie, it took me a little bit, but, like, I was just, as soon as I met Caroline, I was just like, I love you. You're so good. You try so hard. And it took me a while to, like Stefan. Like, because all I just saw was, like, Edward Cullen again. Because, I'm sorry, the hair just...
The thing with Stefan is when I was watching it back in the day, I'd watch it with my mom, and she was just like, he's always got that worry line in the middle of his forehead. What's he worried about? Why is he so worried?
Paul Wesley is very busy, that's why he has that. Just permanently there now from 8 years of that.
Yep. He can never be happy again. This is too real.
Nope, he's just always gonna have that face. I mean, at least David Boreanaz smiled.
I got the funniest message from my dad the other day where he's like, so I started the Vampire Diaries. I was like, but why?
Oh my god. Yeah, it's funny, my dad actually said my ex-stepmom was gonna start, actually watched all 8 seasons, but he didn't really pay attention. Now he's just kind of like, oh yeah, let's watch it so we can do something together. And I'm like, okay, like, sure. I mean, I'll probably rewatch it and just be like, oh my god, babies! Because, I mean, season 1 Buffy, like, I just end up squealing the whole time because little Willow alone
Oh gosh,
is just... Oh my god, Allison Hannigan looks 12, and I can't.
She really does, like, especially if you've just recently watched a How I Met Your Mother episode, and then you'd, like, flip
Oh
back,
my
like,
god.
oh.
Yeah, I tried to get into the show, and it's just, like, it's sort of, like, I don't know, because I wasn't there, like, when it started, I think. I sort of feel that way about Gilmore Girls, because, like, my mom and my sister started watching Gilmore Girls on Netflix, and I was like, okay, it's got the punchiness of Buffy, so I kind of get it.
Gilmore Girls is fascinating because it hasn't, in my opinion at least, I'm sure I'll be stoned for this, but it hasn't aged well in my opinion. I was trying to rewatch
not at all.
it,
Absolutely
and I was just like, oh, they're so obnoxious. I hate them.
Well, that's the thing is, as somebody who actually lives in Connecticut, I have several problems with the show. First of all, Hartford is not that white at all. That's West Hartford, and we're the Jews. There are 10 synagogues in West Hartford alone. My grandma lives there. So, my Emily lives in West Hartford, and, like, that area is not that white, so it just kind of, like, that ticked me off, first of all, and, like, second of all, like, there's just, like, it's trying so hard to be feminist, and it's not. That's the thing that really bothered me, and it's like, oh yeah, like, Lorelai is, like, so edgy and, like, not like other girls, blah, 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 and it was just, I just got sick of it. It was just kind of like, Rory is too perfect.
They're all very entitled as well,
Yeah.
which is very, and also it thinks it's cleverer than it is, which made me laugh. Like when she meets Sam Bean early on for the first time.
Yep.
And
Sam Bean.
he's like, oh, what are you reading? And she's like, oh, Moby Dick, my first Melville.
Moby Dick is the worst. First of all, like, I remember my junior year English class, like, our professor, like, made us read it, and we were all just like, we hate this book. How dare you? Like,
it's a slog. No, it is such a slog to get through.
One of my professors, who is a literature professor, like, I love him and I think he's great, but I just couldn't understand. He's like, oh yeah, his wife's a librarian, which is, like, you know, the perfect love story I've ever heard. She's the children's literature librarian, and he's, like, this, like, cranky old teddy bear literature professor. It's perfect. So he was just like, oh yeah, I started reading it again on audio with my wife. I'm like, twice?
Again?
Twice? Like, and then the next minute he's telling us about the Korean horror film he saw yesterday, because it was October and he tried to watch a horror movie every day, and it was amazing.
I feel like the only reason I would try to read it again is to try and understand why people like it. Just, like, again, like, about why. So just...
I don't even want to touch it. Like, there are definitely some classic literature books. I remember when I was younger, I was really into classic literature. Like, I did Black Beauty, Three Musketeers, White Fang, Call of the Wild. White Fang, Call of the Wild, like, Jack London was my favorite author when I was, like, 10. I have to say, I think, like, my biggest influences right now are Rick Riordan, because he knows how to write children so well. And it's incredible. Like, I would not touch the Percy Jackson verse. And Melissa De La Cruz, the Blue Blood series. And I mean, when I found out she wrote for the Descendants books, I squealed and lost it. Like, I don't know, I probably dropped my phone and just like ran around in a circle for a second.
So when you find a fandom, do you find that you stick with it, like, for a very long time? Or are there some that you cycle in and out of? Or is it more like you're kind of fading, you know, in and out of them as you go?
I have to say that's probably, like, it really depends on the fandom. Like, Buffy is definitely a constant. Once, like, I definitely, like, stopped, like, after season 6, I was just kind of, like, I stopped writing for it after season 6 happened, because it was just, like, I am so angry, like, there's just no point, like, I can't. And I mean, it's not that I don't love these characters, like, I still do. Like, I think that Emma is a wonderful character in season 1, and, like, season 1 and season 2 Emma, like, I remember rewatching, like, the clip of her and Regina with the apple tree, and be like, oh my god, she was such a little shit, what happened? And being so angry. And it just kind of made me fall out of love with the show, which made me sad, because I did really love, you know, the fandom and everything. But, yeah. And with Buffy, like, I just keep finding more things to love about it as it goes. Like, I'm listening to 2 different podcasts, which are incredible. Like, Buffering the Vampire Slayer is an amazing podcast that made me fall in love with the show all over again, even more. And, like, there's music to it, so, like, I don't know if you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should.
Yeah, I actually did conversations about Buffy, and the person recommended it. They were like, Buffering the Vampire
Oh my god, it's so good. And I'm also listening to Dusted, which was recommended by Buffering right now, and that's more about from a writer's perspective of the scripts, which has been really helpful for me. I find it very informative, and I tend to put podcasts on when I'm, like, doing dishes or just, like, as background noise, because I have trouble processing them if I'm just, like, sitting around listening to them, except when it's Buffering, because, I don't know, I think it's hilarious. They've taken to talking about how Angel shops at Pottery Barn. And I just remember I was at school, and I made the mistake of listening to this particular moment where they were deconstructing how he bought the Dark Wood collection, and just, like, losing it. And I'm like, I'm outside a library right now, and there are people. I think it's great. And I'm working on a role play with one of my friends, and we just finished this one, and I've now done this headcanon where Angel has Calvin Klein underwear because he would.
He definitely would. No, 100%. Oh, yeah. That's just such a good image. I mean...
It is, and I mean, if David Boreanaz didn't model for them in the 90s, then he should have, and he missed an opportunity. Like, I'm upset. Though I've always been more of, despite the problematicness of Buffy, I've always loved the sexual chemistry between Spike and Buffy much more. I think it's incredible, and I love Spike as a character. I think he's so fun to write. His dialogue is kind of like candy to me. Like, I just can't stop. I love it so much, and I mean, I feel that way about Cordelia as well. Like, writing for Cordelia is a dream. I don't, do it enough, really, but I think really the 2 characters from Buffy I have the most trouble with. Xander was really hard to do. And Oz, I can't write Oz for the life of me. I love him and Willow, and I think they're adorable, but I can't write Oz. It's so bad. Like, I think it's because he doesn't say a lot, and he is just this stoic epitome of male perfection. Like, all the good things about masculinity are Oz.
No, it's true, because Oz often, like, he stays in the background a lot, so it's hard to get a real feel for him. It's just like, oh, there's Oz, he's nice, and then...
Yeah, he's such a background character. Like, I don't know how to write for him. I have an easier time writing Tara, and at some point she probably said even less than he did, but she has more of a presence than he does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though she doesn't try to have a presence, she has a presence because of that.
Yeah.
One of the things I had a lot of fun when I started writing Buffy and Elena is actually trying to figure out what their sexual chemistry was. And I ended up watching a lot of, like, sex scenes between her and Spike and her and Riley and her and Angel to figure out, like, how she would react. And I also, read the season 8 comic where, she's gay for 5 minutes over and over. Sort of figure out what her reaction would be like. And that's something I actually do is if I want to pair a character with an OC that's not mine and belongs to a fandom, then I want to see what sort of chemistry. So I try to pick a similar archetype of somebody they are with canonically and just sort of go from there and, like, figure it out from there and figure out what their dynamic would be. I really like to do natural chemistry. Like, that is a very, very important thing. I don't want to force it. Like, maybe it's because I don't write for network TV. Who knows?
No, it's like, I often find that, because there's this discussion about, that we often need to have about queer baiting and the ignoring of natural chemistry. And then on the flip side of that, what isn't discussed is that our standards for heterosexual romance are too low. They
really are.
It
makes me so angry.
Low, because you'll often hear the argument of, oh, well, if this happened, these characters would be together. And I'm like, yes, they would be. And that's a problem because our standards are so low. Having a locker next to somebody else should not be. Like...
No, it shouldn't be. And I mean, one of the things that really picks me off about Captain Swan is that, that I get, at the same time, I love the love to hate to love trope, but there is a point where that's unhealthy.
The biggest problem for me with how they ended up developing Captain Swan was how they just removed all other narrative obstacles in the cheapest way possible. Instead of spending any time evolving it or dealing with any of the actual trouble of, say, even having Neil around or anything like that. Nope, dead. Just, he's dead.
Which, I really liked Emma and Neil because they had this history, and there was this, I think he did challenge her in a different way than Hook did. And, I mean, he also, like, Neil had such good chemistry with Henry, and that's the big problem that I have with Hook and Emma, is that you don't see him, it's so forced when you see him doing scenes with Henry. It's so
who else had good chemistry with Henry? August.
Yes.
Forget poor August.
I'm not a big fan of Wood and Swan as a romantic pairing. I have to say, I actually really like them as a platonic, familial relationship, personally. And I get the whole thing with Mad Swan. I do kind of get it, but at the same time, I don't know.
I like Mad Swan. The Mad Swan isn't supposed to be healthy. You're not liking Mad Swan because they're going to go and have a nice, healthy
No, absolutely not. I totally get it. And it's funny because there has actually been a couple of things where I've actually started writing Elena and Spike together, and that was really fun because, like, the moment when I started writing them, it was not a healthy moment, and she was cheating on Buffy with him, and she was drunk, and it was more like this fatalistic thing of, like, well, I'm going to die, so I might as well do something stupid. And they end up sleeping together in this whole thing, and I was like, wow, the sexual heat between them, like, they have such good chemistry, like, I love their banter, I want more of this, but it's so bad, like, they shouldn't be together, and Buffy hates it, but, like, she's also a hypocrite because her and Angel are always going to have a thing, and it's really funny because when I write, one of the things I really do keep with Buffy when I'm writing her is that she always has this history with Angel, and Elena always has this thing with Angel, how she's like, oh, he's your first love. I am not your first love. And that is always going to make me insecure. and he's always around, so...
And he will always be around, so...
Exactly, and it's really fun to play with that. I mean, there's this whole scene so there's actually a companion fic to Hatchland's Mentor called Ready to Love Again, where it's the development of Elena and Buffy's relationship. Mm-hmm. And there's this whole thing where Buffy invites Angel to their wedding without telling Elena. And there's this whole scene where, like, Elena's basically doing this paperwork at Slayer headquarters while Buffy's out, shopping for bridesmaids dresses with Willow and Tara or whoever. Because my friends and I sort of, at some point, were just like, oh yeah, seeing red, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. That episode doesn't exist in our world. It's fine. It's fine. We love them. And there's this whole thing where, like, he basically, like, slams the invitation up. And she's just sort of, like, sighs, and she looks up at him, and she's like, Angel, I presume. And it's this whole, like, weird, like, almost like this rival, like, old married couple dynamic that you see with Xander and Angel. Mm-hmm. It's just really fun to play around with. Like, I love discovering, like, different relationships and how they just interlock and the dynamics. I think that relationships are really, like, ships are fun because I think people are interesting, and I'm really into psychology, and I think that, it really shows in my works that, like, it's really just about chemistry and, like, figuring out. It's not really always about the romantic pairing. Like, I think that there are a lot of friendship pairings, like my character Flenna, who is she is an alcoholic, and she's, a princess who's kind of a hot mess. Like, her and Belle have this really weird, platonic, intense chemistry. And it's so fun. And one of the things my friend and I, like, tried to do a role play with them romantically, mm-hmm. and it was just like, this isn't right. I feel like we messed up with something sacred here. Like, we need to fix this and not scrap this. Didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that, like, I don't know, I get really ticked off about is, like, when people are like, oh, these men and women can't be friends. Like, I hate that.
That's such nonsense.
So I hate that so much. And then, on the other hand, they're like, oh, no, why are you pairing two women together? Why can't we have more strong female friendships? Because they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
No, because it's very much an act of cognitive dissonance, because it's like, oh, but, like, it's impossible for these people to be friends, but only friendship over here, so...
Yeah, no, that's one of the have you seen The Bold Type? Mm-mm. Oh, you absolutely have to. It is on Freeform. The first season's up. They're doing a second. They got renewed for not one, but 2 seasons.
Oh, nice.
So, and I'm really, really happy, because one of the things that I like is that you have the 3 main characters, and, you have one that is exploring her sexuality in her 20s, which is very realistic. She meets a woman through work, and they all work for this, like, that's not Cosmo Magazine, Scarlet Magazine. Yeah. And it takes place in New York. I love writing in New York. Writing in New York is so fun. And, there's these 3 characters, and I love that they are, you do have this strong female friendship. I mean, I originally... started watching it because Katie Stevens was back on TV, and she's from Faking It, and Faking It, I have so many feelings about that show. Mm-hmm. Like, it was such a ride, and I'm sad it's over, and there could have been so much that they could have done, and they didn't, because they got canceled, and it's also problematic, and it's like, oh, the show is definitely from MTV. But The Bold Type, what I love about it is it really is about modern feminism, and I mean, yeah, you only have, like, the token color girl right now. You do still have, like, 2 white female leads, and we're trying, but we're not there yet. Like, Hollywood is doing their best. It's not really, but it's a long road. And I think that, watching them and the dialogue between them, like, all 3 of them, I love that we're having, like, it's not 3's a crowd, this is our crowd, like, yeah. There's this female support, like, the first episode, you have a Muslim lesbian who does photography, and she's very, very open about her sexuality, and that's, like, the one of the main three's love interest, and then you have this woman who's a secretary who is not, being slut-shamed. She's very open about, she's very, she's in a relationship with this guy from the law firm department of Scarlet, and he's so much older than her, and they're, like, in this, like, sexual relationship, and it's not, like, shamed, it's just how it is, like, and it's a very healthy, fun relationship, like, you see them in bed together, they're having a great time, like, they're very happy, they're talking about Snapchat together, like, it's sweet, it's cute, it's romantic, and it's such a, it's such a huge thing where, like, it's so open about talking about sex, and, like, I think the third episode, they were talking about the female orgasm, like, it's huge to have something like that. People need shows like this, and I feel that same way about One Day at a Time. And I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is fantastic, and also Peggy Carter, that television show there were so many things, and speaking of Femslash, Cartinelli is the reason season 2 was the way it was, and I will forever be bitter about that. I was just like, oh, we're just going to take out, like, the best, like, the second, best, most well-written characters other than the title female lead, and we're just going to make it a hetero love triangle, and it all, and, oh, why did we get canceled? Because the lesbians stopped watching.
No, it was Garrick and Bashir all over again from Star Trek, where it was like, oh, are they having actual chemistry? Quick, separate them! Get them away from each other!
Honestly, and I mean, that's the same thing with the Pitch Perfect fandom, because, oh boy, that is a hot button thing, because one of the things that made me angry about the marketing for the third movie is you definitely had that queer baiting going on in the Instagram.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I haven't seen the third movie, and I plan to, but I just...
They lost me at the horrible puns. Like, last chance pitches, I was like, okay, you know what? I have a list.
Also, like, one of the things that I'm kind of mad about is that, with the last two movies, I don't feel like they tried as hard with the music. Like, it was more about the story. Didn't. And I think that the story was also affected by that, because, like, the music is such an integral part of the first movie. Like, the music is so iconic. Like, I don't care. I don't remember anything from the second soundtrack, really, except for Flashlight, because Haley Steinfeld is honestly, like, this perfect little angel thing, and I love her music.
No, it's the same. I couldn't tell you about the second one. Like, it's just, it happened, and that was a thing.
But, like, that first movie's ripoff, like, I am still, like, I catch myself singing No Diggity at, like, random, and I'm like, yes. Like, it was so good. I remember when that movie came out, and, like, I went to a therapeutic high school, so, like, there was, like, I had a graduating class of 11. So, like, we, and it's an all-girls residential, so, like, there weren't any guys that year, and it was just all of us, and we were, this was when Pitch Perfect 1 was released, so we were, like, crazy, like, the whole school was, like, all about the memes and everything, and it was so good, and it was just, like, this pop culture moment, and actually, like, we had my friend Julia ended up, like, what was it? She changed my English professor's desktop to a photo of Lily on, like, the big smart board.
That's great. It reminds me of a terrible prank we did at my work where we had to do top 10 sexiest Disney moments, and as a protest,
oh my god,
everybody changed their desktop images to the horrible Cosmo fan art, where it was all the 50 Shades recreations of all of the Disney characters.
Yes.
So he came in, and all of our computers, we made sure they were just on the backgrounds of all of these things. We were like, what? Sexy Disney.
I really, Disney fan art, like, have you seen the, what was it, the Disney University stuff on DeviantArt, like, that series?
Yeah, I have.
Oh my god, it's so good.
No, I love, like, all the variety of Disney fan art. I'm also a huge fan of the Disney Femslash community and the Fanvid Manips, and they're amazing.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually something I did a couple of Disney Femslash things for Pride last year. So one of my most popular fics right now is Ariel and Moana. And it's a modern AU, and essentially, like, they're living together, they're girlfriends, and it's just this moment where, like, Ariel's, like, dad's coming, and he doesn't know that she works in an aquarium, and she doesn't know that she didn't get the doctorate, so she's, like, having this anxiety attack, and I sort of saw her as, like, you know, she can't cook, so she's, like, freaking out, and Moana comes home, and it's actually this whole calming down period, and it's just this little snapshot, and it's just, people went crazy for it. I mean, it is a very sweet scene, but I didn't think it was going to take off this much. But then again, like, Moana is huge, and it's an amazing movie. Yeah, I wrote it before I even saw Moana.
I was discussing that recently. Like, well, people don't realize that happens, that you can become involved in a fandom before seeing the source material. But it happens all the time. It really does.
Well, I mean, I just saw this, you know, this fan art between the two of them, and I was like, well, this makes sense. Like, why wouldn't I write for this? Like...
No, as soon as I saw it as a pairing, I was like, I get it, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it makes sense. So one of the other things, I actually asked my friends for requests, and I remember one of my friends, it was really funny. She was like, Jasmine and Ariel, I want the mermaid sex. I haven't gotten to that one yet. I was like, I don't know how to write mermaid sex. Like, I you know, I do write the occasional smut scene if it, you know, it calls for it.
Yeah.
And because it's very funny, because if some characters are easier to write for smut because they're so inherently sexual.
Yeah, definitely.
That, like, so much easier.
Yeah, like, speaking of that, like, I feel that that's something that isn't explored enough. Either not necessarily the ace or arrow side, although that definitely isn't explored enough ever. But the lack of just interest, because there is an increased push in exploring that you don't need to be ashamed of your sexuality and sex and having it.
Absolutely.
But there doesn't seem to be a corresponding to the opposite of not wanting to, and that's fine too. Like, sometimes you veer too far and you end up in, like, almost the virgin shamey, like, side of life, and I'm like, I just want a balance. I just would like a nice balance where everything is fine. I want everything to be okay. Am I asking too much? Probably, but that's all right. I have to say, though, before we get back into it, unfortunately, I do have to get going.
All right.
Yeah. But thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And you know what? We stayed pretty on topic, so I'm proud. I'm pleased.
Woohoo!
We stayed in the
I mean, I really wanted to... I just really wanted to get through about Buffy and Descendants stuff. Like, I was like, okay, I have, like, maybe, like, 2-3 talking points that I want to get through with this discussion. Cool, I did those.
No, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
This was a huge opportunity for me. I thank you.
No, it was really good. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
I will, yeah.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yeah, bye.
If you made it to the end, you as always are troopers. Let me know you made it here by answering a couple of questions. Do you work with OCs? And how do you feel about them if you do and if you don't? Also, vis-a-vis Gilmore Girls, have you ever gone back and revisited a series and felt like it hasn't aged very well, but you still have a fondness for it? For comments aside, I definitely have a soft spot for Gilmore Girls, but at the same time, there's also a lot wrong with it. Do you have any series that you feel that way about? Let me know down below. Not too many questions, as this was already quite a lot. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it listening to this discussion. I always appreciate it. It's so great to be able to interact with you, especially in the more direct way with these Fanversations. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. I will see you all again soon, and until then, let's get that outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so until then, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.